What is going on, FG3000? Back in the place to be, and welcome back to Higan. Yeah. In today's video, now that I have played the game through beta, I played the game through global launch, I went through an entire event cycle with Burning Phoenix, I think we now can officially say that I am outside the honeymoon period, right? I done came back home, I'm sitting on my couch looking at my wife like, yo, this is what I signed up for, huh? This is it. So what? In today's video, let's talk about Higan, what I like about the game, what I don't like about the game, and will I continue to play this game now that we have some pretty stiff competition coming next week in the form of Honkai Star Rail. So let's start off with what I like, right? So absolutely, I love the character design in this game. You guys know me. I love that nice little blend between technology and fantasy, and all of these characters like exude that. Like all of these characters have a little bit of tech on their fantasy weapons, right? And I like that a lot. There's a nice variety of weapons as well. All of these characters kind of really fill their niches quite well. And this is one of those rare games that I feel like even the low tier characters feel like not only can they fill a role in your team, you know, skill wise, even aesthetic wise, you don't feel too bad using some of these low tier characters. So I think they knocked it out of the park when it comes to character designs. And it's definitely, you know, when I look at all the hero collectors that have come out in 2023, dude, that's a short list. This is probably my favorite collection of characters in a hero collector thus far, and they're made even better because this is one of those rare games where FG actually pays attention to the story, because in this game it's not just two PNGs monologuing and gyrating back and forth to each other. You actually have spoken dialogue, English dialogue, and the characters actually animate. They move around, they jump, they dance, they sing, they crawl, whatever. They actually animate like real animation, which I definitely appreciate.
Hey, who are you calling drama queen? Director? Wake up, director.
Now, the next most important aspect of a hero collector has got to be the combat system, of course. And I feel like I agree with the overall consensus on the combat system here in this game is that, you know, when you first start playing the game, when you first boot it up, you feel like this game is going to be a lot more manual and more strategic than it lends on, right? Like very early on in the game, you realize that, dude, this game is really based on combat power mostly. Of course, your formation, your team, you know, making sure you have the right elemental type is very important. But at the end of the day, you need to have that combat power because this is one of those games that does institute a combat power penalty if you are behind your enemy. So for a quick example, let's say your combat power is 5,000 and your enemy's combat power is 6,000. Your combat output is going to be considerably neutered just because you're 1,000 behind. Now, as soon as you hit 6,001, you're gonna find out that you're extremely powerful all of a sudden. It's just gonna rip through the content. So very similar to Nikkei, you know, a lot of games have started doing this, and you know, it's definitely not my favorite system. I know why developers do it. It's not pro player in any situation. Like I've thought about this a lot. I've seen it in other games. I can't really think of any situation that makes it better for the player, but for developers, they absolutely love it, right? Developers love these systems because it kind of, I guess we'll go ahead and talk about this. So think about this scenario. Let's say as a player base, we find this perfect combination of heroes, items, and craft essence to make our team so strong, they're just one-shotting the entire campaign, just going bam, 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 just destroying everything in the game. Well, what does a developer do in that situation? Well, they can nerf those characters, which no one likes, especially if you spent money on that. Dude, that really sucks. If you spent money thinking this character is really powerful just for them to get nerfed the next patch. That sucks. Or the developer can then maybe start creating enemies that directly counter that bonus, which is also kind of an indirect nerf, right? We saw this with Exo's Heroes, where Exo's Heroes was constantly making heroes that counter the other heroes that they just made overpowered in the last patch, right? So that's not a great outcome either, right? So if you have a situation where players have come up with this really creative way to decimate your content, especially in a paid gacha, and all the while that this is happening, whales are looking at the game like, wait a minute, why would I spend money to get characters when I can just use this combination of heroes and weapons and just destroy all the content? I'm not spending any money anymore. Then the game shuts down, right? So for developers, they're like, there is no way humanly possible that we can understand every single thing a player might try. So what we're gonna do instead is institute basically a combat power penalty. So what does this do in that same situation that I just described, right? Let's say once again, the player base has come up with this really creative way to have this team of heroes that just one-shots enemies throughout the campaign, destroying everything, killing everybody in PvP. It's pandemonium. Well, if you have a combat power penalty, eventually you're going to hit a wall no matter how strong you are, no matter how creative this little mechanism that you figured out is, no matter how great it is, eventually you're going to hit a wall where the enemies just have so much more combat power than you that they just smack you down to reality. Oh, there goes gravity. I'm sorry. So that's kind of why they do it. I'm not saying it's right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm saying that it is a complex issue to try to tackle, right? Because at the end of the day, once again, what do you want? You want players to feel like they can be creative and find out really interesting combinations with their characters, right? You do want that, but you don't want it to get so out of hand that it completely throws the balance of the game off, because no one wants to play a gacha game that has bad balance. No whale wants to spend money on a game where you don't really need heroes, and no one wants to spend money on characters that are just going to get nerfed by a developer that hasn't paid attention to all of the skills and interactions of all their characters. It's a complex issue, right? But what we've seen, in these years, and this game isn't the first, Nikkei isn't the first either. We've seen this quite a few times in other games where they've done the same exact thing. I'm not sure what the long-term fix is, but what I do think might be helpful going forward is AI, baby. Have AI, right? Like, when you have a development team of 300 people or whatever, there's only so much testing you can do, right? There's only so much you can do. But imagine having an AI go through every single character combination and skill upgrade and weapon. There have been times where players have figured out a way to make their characters stronger by not leveling them, right? There's all kinds of really weird ways that players have figured out how to eke out every little bit of damage that developers have never intended. Dude, I'm thinking that maybe with AI, they can just run these tests and find out, where their outliers are, make sure that they are buffed or nerfed before they even go live in the first place. Dude, you talking about the future? Are we talking about Higan or are we talking about AI, FG? Dude, I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I'm defeating this werewolf sitting in this chair. You got a sitting husbando werewolf, a chubby one too. Looking good. But overall, I'm still a big fan of combat. The only type of combat that I really don't like, this is total sidebar right now, the combat that I dislike the most in games is the combat that scales to your power. That to me is like a deal breaker. Like if I get like a sword that increases my effectiveness by 10% and then automatically all of the enemies are now 10% stronger, to me that's a bigger deal breaker than this, in my opinion. Also, the game has, check this out, not only does it have standard combat, it also has a little tower defense mode action. Look at this! You got tower defense in Higan. I bet you didn't know. Well, if you're playing the game, you knew. Dude, oh god. No one's in range. No one's in range to even do any damage. You know what? That's fine. But overall, I do like the combat. I like the animations, I like the skill attacks, the ultimate animations. Combat is fine. And like I said, when it comes to the combat power penalty, I understand why they have it, even though I don't think it's the greatest. I understand why they have it. And for me, I can let it slide. So of course, outside of collecting characters, enjoying the story, going through the campaign, you do of course have auxiliary gameplay modes here. Nothing really to write home about. You have the Realm of Abundance, right? This is where your daily resource grinds are. So if you need to do an ascension, you run these. If you need gold or experience, you run these. If you want to ascend your characters, you run these. And if you want to min-max the equivalent of basically a rune system in other games, you run the show. So all of these gameplay modes here, I don't really count them per se. This is why I always say the tried and true daily resource grinds, because they're just kind of whatever. They exist in the game to serve a purpose, but they're not really interesting in my opinion. The real interesting gameplay modes are over here under Realm of Fighters. Of course, you have some good old-fashioned PvP. Let's do some PvP real quick. I like the fact that in PvP, oh what, dude, I missed the season? Come on, dude. I mean, whatever, it's PvP, you know what to expect. Outside of that, you have the Deep Maze, which is gonna be your endless tower mode. Here, every single day you come in here, you try to push the highest floor you possibly can. The next day at reset, you hit this quick sweep button and it goes through all of the floors you previously cleared before. Every single day, you get these rewards every single clear, which I definitely appreciate. So the Deep Maze basically runs every single day unchanged, right? Outside of that, that, you do have a second tower called the Isolated Tower Challenge, and I do like this one. Once again, this gives you a reason to use a more diverse cast of characters, because right now in this tower, pyro characters deal 50% more damage. So it's such a big bonus, you really can't ignore that. Once again, you have a leaderboard here, you go up the highest where you possibly can. No quick sweep on this one, but this is season based, right? So that makes sense. So in between 4-7 and 4-19, you get plenty of time to build up pyro characters to try to run up this tower. Once it resets, it's going to change to a different element type, giving you yet another excuse to build a more diverse roster of characters and kind of, you know, get out of your comfort zone a little bit. Transcendent Domain still hasn't started yet, so I have no idea what that is. And then my least favorite gameplay mode, the Labyrinth mode. Dude, you know I love these gameplay modes. So when it's my least favorite, that kind of tells you something. So right now I have 11 entries, right? So I can do this Labyrinth mode 11 times, but it needs so much more quality of life. Not to the level of Nikkei, it's not that tedious, but it's a little tedious, especially when you've already defeated it. There's just a lot of things that can be kind of trimmed out. Like, why do I need to be talked to when I jump into the labyrinth, right? Like, what are you saying? Like, I don't need that at all. Why do I have to run to things like that? Like, there's a lot of things, in my opinion, can be trimmed out of this to make it faster, especially if you want a player to run through this 11 times, right? Like, dude, make it a little bit easier on me, right? So that's pretty much it from a gameplay perspective. Another thing that we are waiting for is Union, which I assume is guild functionality. Since it's not in the game yet, I'm hoping by the time it does come to the game, it's something like creative. I hope it's not just a guild you just check in and you do donations to your guild mates. Like, dude, you gotta do something more creative. If it's not gonna be in the game at launch and it's taking a little bit longer for you guys to create this system, make it good, make it creative, make it something different that we're used to, right? But overall, my thoughts on Higan are pretty solid. I do plan on continuing to play this game because, you know, once you kind of get a groove going, it's a real easy game to kind of put into your rotation. Even with Honkai Star Rail on the horizon, I know like the first couple of weeks of Honkai Star Rail, I'm gonna be like 100% on that game. Like, I'm not gonna be worried about anything else. But eventually, in any game, in any gacha game, you get to a point where you can kind of knock out your dailies in a pretty reasonable amount of time. So in those types of circumstances, I feel like it's always important to have a couple of gacha games in your pocket. And one of those gacha games for me, even with the big dogs on the horizon, for me will still be Higan. So that is gonna do it, my friends. Once again, my name is FG3000. I do thank you a ton for watching. I really want Rita. I do want Rita, dude. Let's just do it. Let's do a 10 pull for the video, you know what I'm saying? Can I get Rita? I don't have any Ranger characters I like at the moment. So it'd be really cool to get someone new. It's probably not a good idea because the elemental bonus for Pyro is probably about to change to something completely different. But you know, just for the sake of the YouTube, can we turn it orange? Oh, this is what you get when you say nice things about games, baby. Yeah, we got her. Dude, what? All right, cool. I don't care about the rest of you guys. Let's not get two. All right, I only got one. That's fine. Very nice. So we finally have a ranger that I want to use because once again, I had black, I had mirror. I just didn't want to use those two. But Rita seemed pretty cool. Got a little dragon there as well. Or what is that? It looks like a dragon. It gives me Exos Heroes vibes, like for real. She's like the female Xeon, you know what I'm saying? Very cool. So that is gonna do it, my friends. Once again, my name is FG, and I'll see you guys in the next video. I'm out.